Angela sighed when another, older woman, pushing her aside, entered the doctor's office. The woman scolded herself for inaction. She should have stood up and not let anyone, without a cue. But apparently her husband Zane was right. She was characterless. When the door of the office opened again at last, Angela was about to go in, but the nurse who came out put up a sign on the door that said, "A break of 20 minutes." Angela sighed again. Now she would definitely be late for work. The woman dialed her manager to warn him, and of course he was annoyed and shouted at her for a long time, once again reminding her that she had to work, instead of being sick all the time. Angela hung up the phone and leaned back tiredly in her chair. She thought about how much everything in her life had changed. Her colleagues looked at her sideways at work because she was sick more than she worked. Her husband moved into a separate room and began to reproach and bully her. Only her son Nolan always comforted her and helped her forget about her illness. When Angela met Zane, Nolan was 2 years old. Then Zane proposed to her, and Angela worried about how the boy would react. It was impossible to say that Zane loved the child, but he treated him well, never raised his voice, often gave gifts, and Angela made up her mind. But that was 5 years ago, and now everything had become different. Angela began to get sick often, and over time she realized that her husband was no longer interested in her. And now there was also the suspicion of the most terrible disease. Over the past month, she had visited many doctors, taken a bunch of tests and waited for the result, although there was not much hope. Angela felt that everything was bad, and now, more than ever, she needed the support of her husband. On the way back from the clinic, Angela picked up her son from school and went home. At home, Nolan immediately hid in his room, as he knew that now another scandal was about to start, and he could not watch his mother cry. And so it turned out. Zane yelled at his wife, showering accusations and blames. "I'm so fed up with all this. I want a normal wife, not one who smells of medicine and is constantly ill." Angela tried to calm Zane down, but he didn't want to hear anything, and accusing her of being worthless again, left, slamming the door. Angela knew that he would not come today. It seemed to her that her husband had already had another woman, and he deliberately arranged these scandals to leave the house more often, while she really needed his support right now. The next day, Angela could not stand it and called Zane to ask if he was coming home today. In an almost pleading voice, she tried to explain to her husband how much she needed him now, but she ran into a wall of indifference and rudeness. "Angela, stop whining. It's disgusting to listen to you. I've been thinking a lot, and I realized that I really don't need your problems. Solve them yourself," Zane said sharply and hung up. Angela cried again. After work, Angela went to the hospital to find out the results of her examination. Her fears were confirmed. The doctor told her about the long treatment period, maybe a year or more, but he was not sure if she would ever recover. "You and your family will need courage and patience over the next year, and believe in my experience. A successful result of treatment depends a lot on the support of your family," the doctor said sympathetically, looking at his sad patient. Angela left the clinic, almost unbearable to see anything in front of her because of the tears. She was faced with a dilemma and did not know what to do now. Telling Zane about the disease is impossible, and if not to be treated, then Nolan will remain an orphan. She had no parents and no one to help her. Suddenly, a car honked in front of her. Angela shuddered and saw a man jump out of the car, run up to her, and hug her. Angela, is that you? It can't be. Bruce? Yes, it was him, Bruce, her classmate and first love, who, to Angela's great regret, had always treated her only as a friend, and she, therefore, never told him about her feelings. Immediately after the army, he was going to leave for work on the other side of the country, and knowing this, Angela decided to take the initiative. Bruce became her first man, and their few nights together were the most vivid memories of her unrequited love. Angela, you just have to have coffee with me right now and tell me how you're doing. Angela smiled and agreed. She was pleased about this unexpected encounter. When they sat down, Bruce began to talk about himself. As it turned out, all this time he had been working at the mines making money, and now he planned to open his own jewelry business. After finishing his story, Bruce eagerly asked Angela to tell him about herself. Well, there is nothing interesting about my life. Married, have a son, work as an economist. Angela said a little sadly. You studied design, didn't you? Yes, I was, but my husband said it's not a profession, it's just a mistake. What a strange husband you have. And why were you crying when I met you? It was because of the wind, lied Angela. Of course, Bruce did not believe her, but decided that he would find out later. He looked at Angela and could not understand what had happened to her. She was always so cheerful, but now she was sitting in front of him, exhausted, with slack eyes, and she looked much older than her years. They exchanged numbers, and Bruce made her promise that they would definitely meet again. When Angela returned home, she was greeted by Nolan, joyfully running out to meet her, and strangely enough by Zane, who did not feel the slightest bit guilty. Without giving Angela a chance to come to her senses, he pounced on her with reproaches and questions again. Well, and where were you? You actually have a family. Have you seen a doctor? When will you know the results of the checkup? Angela smiled guiltily and handed Zane the papers. The man quickly ran through them with his eyes, looking something up on the internet, and grudgingly asked what Angela was going to do. After learning that she will have to undergo long-term treatment and care, Zane silently started to gather his things. I'm sorry, but that's without me. I've got my whole life ahead of me, and I don't need a sick wife and another man's child, he said irritably. Zane, don't do this to us. Not now. We'll be lost without you, mouthed Angela with difficulty, feeling the tears choking her. It's not my problem anymore. Why should I carry such a burden? The man continued packing, while Angela was crying profusely. How had it happened that there was no trace of their love? The woman rushed to Zane, trying to stop him, but he just rudely pushed her and threw the keys to her apartment, left, slamming the door loudly. The keys landed right in her face. A drop of blood spurted from her injured eyebrow. Nolan cried, and Angela cradled him in her arms. They both sat there on the floor. The boy calmed down a little and only sobbed, while Angela stared at the wall with unseeing eyes, wondering what to do now. From that moment on, things got even worse. A month passed. The money was running out at a catastrophic speed. The boss heard about the impending long sick leave and promised to find a reason to fire Angela if she did not quit on her own. The cupboards and shelves in the kitchen quickly became empty. Bruce called several times, but Angela did not want to burden her friend with her problems and did not pick up the phone. She also did not want Bruce to meet Nolan, and she had her reasons for that. Moneylessness made Angela think of her grandmother's jewelry. No one knew about them, not even her husband, because Angela had kept them as a family heirloom and had followed the instructions of her mother. She told her that this jewellery was more than 200 years old and had bloody history, so they were not worn, but only passed down as heirlooms. A long time ago, her mother had said Angela to use them only in desperate situations, and now that moment seemed to have come. The woman knew that the jewellery was expensive, but she had no idea how much it cost, so she decided to find out first. A large jewellery store with a pawn shop and workshop had just opened nearby, so the woman headed there, taking one of the earrings with her. At the store, Angela was immediately escorted to the jeweller. He carefully examined the jewellery and wide-eyed looked at Angela. "Do you know how old this piece of jewellery is?" he said quietly. "About 200, Angela said quietly. "I got it from my great-grandmother." Upon learning that Angela also had a second earring, the jeweller asked permission to take a picture of the jewellery and then announced the sum Angela could receive if she brought the second earring. The sum was huge, and Angela immediately estimated that it was enough money for her and Nolan for a year. They agreed that tomorrow Angela would bring both earrings and receive the money. The woman was going home in a good mood, convinced that now she and her son will be fine. The next day she put the earrings in her purse and hurried to the store. In a couple of days she was to be taken to the hospital, and she puzzled over what to do with Nolan. In her musings, she did not immediately notice that there was a man following her. Almost outside the store, he jumped on her, hit her on the head, and, snatching the bag, immediately fled. Angela screamed and fell down. The driver of one of the cars in the parking lot, seeing this, rushed to Angela. "Are you all right?" he asked, turning the woman over to face him. "Angela, what on earth is that?" 5 minutes later, Angela was sitting in the office of Bruce, who turned out to be the owner of the ill-fated jewellery store. The man nervously paced from corner to corner, trying to find out from Angela the details of what had happened. "Angela, do you remember if anyone knew where and why you were going today?" "No, no one." "Wait, only your jeweller knew." And Angela told him that she had come to the store yesterday to appraise her great-grandmother's earrings. "And why did you want to sell? Although, okay, we'll talk about that later," said Bruce, and asked the secretary to ask for their jeweller. But when the man heard that he had taken the day off yesterday, just after Angela left, he understood everything. The man ordered his driver to take Angela home and told her to stay home, not to go anywhere, and not to open the door to anyone. He promised he would come in the evening to talk about everything. Angela stayed at home with her son. Nolan could see that his mother was thinking about something and crying all the time, but he did not ask her about anything. Unexpectedly, the doorbell rang. Nolan ran to open it, but Angela abruptly stopped him, cautiously went to the door, and peered through the peephole. It was Bruce, and next to him a man in uniform. She sighed in relief and opened the door. Bruce went inside, looked around the hallway, and noticed that nothing had changed during those 8 years. "Angela, you need to give a testimony. The jeweller was found. Your earrings, too. You can pick them up a little later." "Bruce, thank you. We can't do without them now," Angela said, wiping away her tears. Bruce noted anxiously that Angela was crying again. The woman went into the room with the investigator, and Bruce, seeing Nolan, smiled and went with him into the kitchen. The boy smiled back and showed the man where they had tea and sugar. My mum doesn't let me turn on the stove, even though I know how. So you're on your own, or my mum will be crying again." "Does she cry a lot?" "Yeah, especially after Zane left us. That's Mom's husband." Bruce frowned and asked why the boy did not call Zane Daddy. "Because he's not my daddy. My dad's a good man. That's what my mom used to say. But he's gone far away. I know that if he were here, he'd be sure to punch Zane for calling me a burden and other bad words." Bruce almost dropped his mug. Now he was sure that something terrible was going on in Angela's life, and the desire to clarify everything became even stronger. After a glance at the empty shelves and learning from Nolan that his mother was always sick and they had no money at all, Bruce picked up the boy and they went to the grocery stores. When they returned, Angela met them in the hallway. "What's this?" the woman asked confusedly, nodding at the bags of food. "Did you decide not only to starve yourself, but also the child? Why didn't you tell me anything? And why didn't you pick up the phone?" Angela was silent and then went to cook dinner. When they all finished eating and Nolan went to bed, Bruce poured a coffee for himself and Angela, and sitting across from her, demanded to tell him everything at last. And Angela told him everything, how she had met Zane, how she had fallen ill, and about betrayal. She did not hide the fact that she had run out of money, and that soon she would have to go to the hospital, and the child had no one to leave her with. She had no relatives or friends left. Her husband had banished all of them. The words flowed out of her in a torrent, and when she'd finished her confession, Bruce was quiet for a while. Then, in a tone that would not accept objection, he ordered Angela to pack her things and move with Nolan to his place, at least for the period of treatment. Bruce had a large house and a housekeeper who could look after the boy when he himself would be at work. Angela wanted to protest, but when she saw how serious Bruce was, she suddenly couldn't stop herself and hugged him. "Thank you. Everything is so easy when you're around." Bruce's consciousness clouded over. He hugged Angela and thought about how he had always loved her, even though Angela had always treated him as a friend. All these years he remembered their nights and could not understand why she had given him such a gift. He had never mentioned his feelings, knowing that it was unnecessary because they were just friends. When Angela went to the hospital, Bruce tried to entertain Nolan, who missed his mother. One weekend they went to the water park and the boy was absolutely delighted. They were having a riot in the water, like little kids, and when Bruce noticed an unusual spot on Nolan's shoulder that looked like a birthmark. "What have you got there, Nolan?" "Oh, it's a birthmark. Mom says it's just like Daddy's." Bruce felt himself getting covered in icy sweat. "And how old are you?" After hearing that the boy was 8 years old, Bruce wondered, and then decided that he was going to have a serious talk with Angela today. When Bruce entered the ward, Angela immediately asked him about Nolan. "He'll visit you later, Angela. We need to talk about what happened almost 9 years ago," he muttered glumly. "When were you going to tell me everything?" "Never. You didn't love me, so I took a piece of you, and I wasn't going to impose on you." "What a fool you are," exclaimed Bruce. "It was you who didn't see how much I loved you." Angela looked stunned at Bruce and finally realized how wrong they both were. "I think we're both fools," she said, and cried with happiness. The company where Zane worked was doing poorly, and this had a big impact on the salaries of all their employees. But the job situation in the city was difficult, and there was simply no point in looking for a new one. And yesterday the employees were told that the company had been bought, and a meeting was scheduled today to introduce the new owner. Few people were happy about this turn of events. People did not expect anything good from the woman in an executive role. Most of all, they feared that she would fire all of them. And now Zane was sitting in the buzzing hall, waiting for the meeting and thinking about his own life again. The uncertainty was exhausting and frightening him, but on top of that, his girlfriend Melanie once again rolled him a scandal. The woman was out of her mind with envy that her friend's husband had brought her a car, and she, the unfortunate one, had nothing from Zane. He and Melanie had been together for 3 years, but he remembered Angela more and more often, and thought that perhaps he had been too hasty. He had never done his own laundry and cooking during marriage with Angela. Unlike her, Melanie constantly refused to do the housework, excusing herself with fatigue. Yet he lived much better with Angela. Thinking about his ex-wife, Zane thought that she most likely passed away long ago, and her son had probably been taken to an orphanage. It was doubtful that this weak woman had the strength and money to recover. People in the hall moved, and Zane saw that a young, beautiful woman, most likely the new boss, came on the stage. He looked appraisingly at her beautiful figure, stylish suit, and elegant high heels, and when he shifted his gaze to her face, he couldn't believe his eyes. It was Angela. At first he thought he was mistaken, but when the woman began to speak, he realized that it was exactly she. Zane could not understand how a sickly grey woman could become a confident, successful businesswoman. Zane did not listen carefully to what Angela was saying, but he saw that people were asking her questions, and she was answering them confidently. After the meeting, he heard from another colleague that they were satisfied with the new management and people had hope for better times. Zane couldn't believe all those words about his ex-wife. He went outside for a smoke and saw Angela, having said goodbye to her chief engineer, heading for the big white jeep. He called out to her, "Zane, are you still working here? I thought you became a big boss in a company somewhere." "And you've gotten spiteful, Angela." "And why should I be nice to you?" replied his ex-wife, smiling. Zane was eagerly looking at Angela and trying to find the words to hint to her to renew their relationship, as suddenly as saw the same jeep, but black, drive into the parking lot, and Nolan ran out of it and joyfully rushed to his mother. "Walk a little, I need to talk to you, Mother," Zane shouted irritably to the boy. "Who's bossing my son around here? You're Zane, aren't you? I've wanted to see you for a long time." Bruce gritted his teeth and punched Angela's ex-husband in the jaw with a swing. "Go and write your resignation letter, and don't you ever come here again." Both cars drove out the gate, and Zane sat in the dust for a long time. Then, spitting angrily, he staggered home, anticipating a terrible scandal. Though now without a job, his girlfriend hardly needed him at all.